creating curiosity by asking better questions. This is Shed Talk. Dave Kelly has been in Calgary for many years, changing the landscape, one talk at a time. Dave Kelly, thank you for coming to Shed Talk.
No, I'm just thrilled to be here with the man with the physique.
Oh man, I've been working on that for years, and see how easy that is? You could have it.
Could I? I need some tats. I need some of these just to have around the house just for Blythe. So she's like, look at this guy. Someday I'll get there. Not yet.
Well, we're not that far off. So how long do you think it'll take you before you get ready to be able to work out like that right now?
To get to your level, first there's the tats alone. How long is that going to take? I don't know.
Well, that's about 4 to 8 months process, really getting down to the actual burning it into your skin. It's quite painful, actually.
All right, let's just say I'll sit my ass right here and do this.
Awesome, Dave. So, Dave, thanks for coming. And
pleasure.
I had to ask one of the questions. You've been in this industry for how long?
Well, full time, like in this sort of be out in front of people, I would say 95, 94 is when I sort of jumped in full time. I was a musical theater guy before then, and I was a school teacher before that. So I've been in front of people for 40 years, I would say.
So what's it like being in the musical side of it?
I'm not in the musical side of it. Do you mean like as in singing? I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I try, I should say. I've done some, but I'm not really a performer in that sense, no.
No, and your biggest, what we would call your superpower, what would that be? Hey, take a minute and smash that subscribe button, and let's get back to the episode.
Bench press.
Bench press? And like I said, it's only 12 weeks.
I think I wouldn't say I have a superpower as much as I've honed an interest in what an audience likes, and really it's what I like. So I'm fairly good, I think, at saying if I do this work, if I'm genuine about this, people are interested in that. So I have a sense of storytelling. I have a sense of funny. I have a sense of pulling people along. I have a sense of interviews and what's going to work in an interview. So it's more about me sort of developing a sense of what I find interesting. And luckily enough, a lot of other folks would find that interesting.
So how do you really dig down deep into when you're doing a seminar or a public speaking event and reading the crowd?
Well, here's my theory, which is always going to be boring. So let's start by boring everybody. But here's my thing. What I've learned, and I do a lot of work with people who are doing keynotes, and I say the most stimulating role in any room is the person on stage. So if I'm on stage, it's really stimulating because everyone's looking at me. I was introduced, I have a microphone, so it always feels heightened. The problem with that, though, is it means the worst judge of how it's going is the person talking, because they're already stimulated. Look, everyone's looking at me. And so the trick is to say, what does the audience find interesting? Because when I'm up there and I'm talking and people are looking and they look at me go, well, they're responding sort of. I think I'm killing it, and maybe I'm not. So the trick is to be able to say, well, what is the audience getting out of that? So that's always been me, is to say, but is the audience getting off on whatever is going on?
So have you ever had an experience when you're on stage and you're doing, and you're feeling it, this is going so sideways that I've got to change it up, and then you actually change a whole conversation up that way?
Yeah, usually what would happen to me is I would realize, that I didn't get them yet. So sometimes when you're like, all right, everyone, listen up at the start of something, and then I just plow ahead without saying, no, wait till everyone's listening. So that's takes a bit of guts to say, I'm going to stand here till everyone shuts up. That takes a bit of work. And that's hard to do. But then I've definitely been in situations where you're like, okay, whatever I'm saying isn't interesting. So either I got to introduce another guest, or I got to get the heck off because let's face it, they don't want to be here, or change what I'm doing. Yeah.
So on your first gig that you ever did, paid, okay, as a speaker, going in there and talking, how long ago was that?
That was at the triangle-shaped building It was about 2 blocks west of, and they were a company that was bought by a Chinese conglomerate. It was a big deal when Harper was president or prime minister. It doesn't matter. But anyway, so what it wasn't even really a paid gig. I was on TV at the time, and they said to me, can you come do a book launch? And this mental health, Calgary Mental Health Association or someone like that had put together a cookbook. And they said, we want you to come to this building where everyone's going to gather and you're going to MC the book launch. So you're going to get up, get everyone's attention, and then interview somebody. Great. So I go to this thing, and it's a lobby of an office building. And I'm like, where do I stand? They're like, I don't know, just anywhere. And I'm like, how are people going to hear me? And they're like, I don't know, you figure that. So I literally found a chair, dragged it over to where the elevators were, stood on top of the chair, and started talking as people were going in and out of the elevator. It was just one of these sweaty, horrible experiences where I'm like, no one cares. No one's listening. They're all going on. I'd finally get someone's attention, and then the elevator would show up and they'd get on the elevator. I'm like, this is the worst. So like a lot of people, I've got great stories of sucking in front of people.
Yeah, and it's okay to suck kind of thing. Enjoy the suck, as most people would say. You better enjoy the suck to where we're going to be going at. So would you actually say that would be more like your elevator pitch when you're waiting for them to get onto the elevator?
I mean, it wasn't even that good. It was just terrible. It was like my elevator, but they didn't even have that kind of time. It was brutal.
So out of all the interviews you've ever done, and I'm sure you get asked this all the time.
Yeah.
Which one was your best interview?
Mm-hmm.
And then which one was your worst interviews?
What an interesting question. Here's my here's what I know. Ones I like, I mean, obviously going on tour with Ellen was fun. Obama at the Saddle Dome, doing an interview with him with 15,000 people was exceptional. On the Ellen tour, we did a tour across Canada, and then we did a show in Miami together. And she wasn't sure if she's like, you're Canadian. Nobody will know Canada. Nobody knows your world. Nobody knows your humor in Florida. Is this going to work? And it was fun to see if I could pull it off, and it worked. So those were, as far as like big shiny moments that worked, those were pretty great. Those were right up there. And then, I mean, worst, I don't know if there's ever been like worse, but there's certainly been ones where if I've done an interview where the guest just caved, and then I was like, what am I going to do to get out of this? I remember once we were on television and we were doing a cooking segment. And so there's cameras across and like we're this tall thing where you're cooking, and there's me and this chef, and the chef's there and I'm there, and we're in a commercial, and he had the pans out and he had stuff going. He had his supplies underneath, and I'm like, hi everyone, welcome back to the show. Joining me today. And as I say, joining me today, you know how they do that on TV where it's like an outside shot and they dissolve to us. So it's the outside shot while I'm saying, hi everybody, welcome. And then when they dissolve to us, my chef panicked and ducked down. In my head, I'm looking at the camera. I thought he was getting something, but he wasn't. He was freaked out. So I'm like, welcome back to the show. I'm here with Chef, what's his name or whatever, Chef Fred, and we're going to be doing a bake and a cake. And it looks like I'm introducing a non-person because I'm talking as if there's someone there, but from the camera's perspective, there's no one there. So then I say, and I look over and he's down there. So then I look down, I go, so how we doing? We're going to make a cake today. And he's crouched down looking at me. Camera can't see anything. He looks up and he goes like this and nods his head. That's it. Well, there's no mic pick. So then I'm like, well, now what do I do? So I sort of say, well, he's just getting his stuff. And I went on, and finally he came up, and I remember his shirt was soaked because he was so nervous. And I felt so bad for the guy because normally I'm really good at helping them through that. But clearly he'd slipped through the cracks of his nerves and was fine until the last minute. And I watched him, and he just like sweating and trying to talk and trying to cook. And all I could do was just try to keep him alive and keep him going. But it was just I just felt so bad for him because I could have helped. And I just didn't realize till we were on air the state he was in, and it was a state.
So you're going to get guys that'll be on stage with you, and then all of a sudden they have a conversation they're going to do, and then all of a sudden they freeze. Mm-hmm. Is this where the expertise comes in and says, okay, how you're going to lead them through the whole process and say, hey, I'm going to help you through this? Mm-hmm. And we ever whisper in their ear and say, okay, what do they say sometimes? Just pretend everybody's naked or something like that? Or is it
for me, in my experience, it's all about prep. So the guy, it was really my fault. I wasn't aware that he was nervous as he was until we were on air. And that was not good. Normally, and what I would tell people is I'd say, you don't worry, you just jump. And I'm going to know you're going to freeze long before you know you're going to freeze. And I would. And then I'd say, so here's what we're going to, and I'd talk them through everything ahead of time. So 90% of these sort of situations are my responsibility to make sure that I know what they're nervous about, where they're nervous in the chat, what kind of things are winding them up, and how to help them go. Because it's all about, and there's no different. You, Santa Claus, Ellen DeGeneres, Obama, every one of them sits down at first and they're nervous because they're like, I don't know this guy. Does he know what he's doing? Is this going to go well? I don't know this crowd. So my brother and I, when we do these, we call it, how soon can we make the shoulders drop? And that's the key for every interview, is at what point does the person go, this is going to be fun. And that's what you're after, because as soon as they feel, it's going to be fine, this person knows what they're doing, they know what's going on, this crowd is fine, the equipment's going to work, it's all going to be good. Once they realize that, then you get them. And for me, that's been the fun of my life, is figuring out how to make people's shoulders drop.
That's interesting, because when you start thinking about that, as a speaker going in there, seeing the crowd, that whole prep before to be able to say, okay, that aha moment, that they're here. Mm-hmm. There has to be a big prep for that to get there. It's not, It just doesn't happen. Mm-mm. How long does it take you to prep for a tour or a speaking? Well, let's use Ellen as an example. And getting that, like, even going back further, how did you manage to get that? And I'm going to say a gig. I'm going to call, and maybe it's saying it wrong. As an entrepreneur, and people are looking at it and going, like, that's amazing to be able to do, Ellen. How did you even manage to even get that?
The way that one worked was, I don't know. This is my theory on everything, which is a theory. It's really important to get good at something. So whatever, when people used to say, I want a job in television, which they don't anymore, but when they did, or I want a job in anything, I would say, well, get good at something. I've never quite bought the follow your passion. To a degree I do, but not really, because I think the mistake then is you're just chasing after what feels good. And I say, but you got to get good at something, whatever that is. And chances are passion follows getting good. So if I get really good at something, then I'm passionate about it. But otherwise, I'm just going to say, well, I'm passionate about video games. What does that get you? So for me, I love doing interviews, and I didn't know that wasn't part of my life. It wasn't part of my training. But when I got breakfast television, we did 9 interviews a day. And the reason we did 9 interviews a day is because our equipment was shit. And because our equipment was shit, we couldn't roll tape. And anybody that was around for the beginning of City TV or A Channel when it started remembers that our first newscast included 4 minutes of watching the LRTs going by, because we couldn't roll any of the stories because our equipment was too far ahead and it just didn't work. So because of that, on breakfast television, when our Big Breakfast at the time, they said, we're not going to rely on gear. We're just going to bring in people and they're going to talk. So I just did interview after interview after interview after interview, because we couldn't roll tape. We couldn't say, let's go out and shoot a story and bring it back and show it, because we couldn't trust that the equipment was going to work. So that meant 9 interviews a day for a decade, a little more. So that's 25,000 interviews. I don't know if I was very good at the beginning, no, but by 25,000, for me, it was fun to go, how do I make this better? How do I make the interview better? So that became my focus for a decade. Then I got into doing live shows where I would be in front of an audience. I did a lot of theater before, so I was excited about, can these interviews translate to a live crowd? And of course they can. And I got that skill, which is slightly different, not that different, but similar. If we were sitting here and I was interviewing you and there was 500 people, it would change it a bit, but not that much. It would still be doing that. So I did a lot of corporate gigs, but then at a certain point, my brother and I said, let's do our own. Let's build a show. So we called it Dave Kelly Live, and we did these live audience shows where we booked theater and people bought season tickets and we had guests. So I got to know Glenn really well. My buddy Jim Button was with me for a lot of them. most of them, and we would do these live shows, and it was Dave Kelly Live, and it was like doing the Tonight Show. And we would have guests, and we had a house band, and Russell Broom and his crew was there. Mandy Stobo did art, and we did 20, 30 of these shows over years. One day, 2 producers were at the show that saw it, and it was fun, and it was live, and we had interviews in front of an audience, and it was excellent. And they were the ones who were in talks with Ellen to come to Canada and do a show. So Ellen said, I'll come. I don't want to do a speech. And they were the ones that brought Oprah here. They brought Clinton here. They brought both Bushes here. And all of them showed up. They did a talk for 40 minutes, speech, and then they had a quick Q&A. Ellen's like, I don't want to do a speech. I don't like speeches. I don't want to do one. I don't want to do stand-up. I'll only come if I don't have to think. I fly in, land, sit on a chair, and someone talks to me. So when they finally agreed, okay, we'll do that, they needed to figure out who's going to sit across. So these 2 producers were at this show that I was doing, and they were like, he's in a live audience talking to the interviewing people, and people are responding and laughing. Let's include him. So they called me and they said, hey, look, we're bringing Ellen to Canada. She's going to do a tour. And in every city, she wants someone to sit and talk. So why don't you do the Calgary one? Or no, they didn't say that. They said, would you send us a tape that we can send to Ellen? So I sent a tape along with a whole bunch of Canadian on-air people. So, well, I don't want to mention names, but a lot of the people you would see on E-Talk or in all from across Canada all sent stuff to Ellen's people to say, I want to do it. Most of them, all of them, I would say, were TV people. I was the only one that sent video from a show. So they said, so they saw all of these other people doing celeb interviews on TV, and then they saw this one and they said, what about him? So then they chose me to do Calgary, which was bananas and exciting and fun and all that stuff. So she shows up, and I spent an insane amount of time preparing. So I knew everything about her life. I'd found, and it was crazy because they were like, I don't know, do an hour. You figure out what you want to do. They didn't care. They wanted to know that I wasn't going to make her look stupid, her people. But other than that, they were like, you know Calgary, you do it. So I came up with, I had shots of big moments in her life. I had videos of big moments. And I built all this stuff, and we got there, and they have a VIP reception. So normally with someone like that, we'd have a minute before to sort of chat, but she had this VIP grip and grin so everybody could meet her. I never got a chance to meet her. I'm literally standing side stage, and someone yells, come here, quick. Ellen just wants to say hi before we go on. So I go we're under the stage, through the dome, going around, find her. And she goes, have a good show. I'll see you out there. Great. That was it. So that was my entire time with her. I walk out, sit down, or I introduce her. She comes out, sits down. And it's exactly what my brother talked about is, how fast can we make her shoulders drop? And so because I knew her life better than she did, and I'd spent all of this time researching it, and because I could say to the audience, all right, I got them laughing, I got her on board. And as soon as she realized, oh, he knows what he's doing and he knows me, so I don't have to fill in the blanks, she relaxed, and it went swimming. It was fun. We made her laugh. We brought up stuff she didn't think about. We brought up pictures. She goes, well, I haven't seen those. So it was this great hour. That was on a Saturday. And then, so it was great. Everything's thrilled. I go home. It was fun. And, it was a big moment. Then on Wednesday of the next week, I get a big bunch of flowers at our office. And I'm like, who's sending me flowers? There's a card. And in the card, it said something like, Dave, you made that so fun. Let's tour together. Love, Ellen. So originally, my gig was for Calgary, and they're going to find someone else. And she said, he's going to do all of them. So then I went on the road with her, and we did across Canada. And then 6 months later, she was doing something in Miami, and she said, come do this. So we did. So that was all because of thousands of interviews, a pile of live shows, and it just sort of that skill set that I built up then meant that when someone came calling and said, hey, could you do this? I was like, yes, I can. So it was really fun and super satisfying that it worked out.
That is absolutely amazing. I'm listening to the transition go back years ago, and you talk about your interviews. So here you are doing the interviews, 25,000. Now, fast forward today, here we are sitting, okay? Mm-hmm. in a shed, in a podcast, doing a podcast shed talk, a regular guy coming in here, doing an interview where this was never possible 25 years ago. You'd have to have all the production, everything there, and the change of technology from there then to now. How has that been set in your mindset of where you were to where you are now? Like it must be such a big transition.
Yeah, I think the barrier to entry is lower now, right? Anyone can do a podcast and have it sound great. Anyone can do a podcast like this and have it look great. And that wasn't possible. If you wanted to buy a camera in the late 90s, it was $50,000. If you wanted to make it look this good, that was a $50,000 for one camera. The mics were hugely expensive. And then if you were ever to buy it would be $500,000 just for the gear, just the gear. Now you get a laptop and a couple of mics and you're in. So it means anyone can do it, which is awesome. It also means that the people who are doing them tend not to be interviewers, right? That's not what they do. They're people who just like shooting the shit. So that's shooting the shit. But it's amazing to me how accessible and how young people now, anyone says, I could do this, and they can. It's great.
Yeah. And it's interesting because now after that, you guys started up your company, Brothers Production. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Hey, take a minute and smash that subscribe button. And let's get back to the episode.
So Kelly Brothers was my brother Rob and I. Rob is a behind the camera guy and I'm an in front of the camera guy. He was an editor and a director and a producer, and I'm on camera a lot. And he was like, maybe there's something we could do together. So it was sort of a lark for a while, then became him and I working, say, let's set up a company and let's build some actual projects that we can work on. So sometimes it's straight up video. Sometimes it's live events with video. Sometimes it's just live events. And we sort of work at making what I think our skill is we're really good at saying, is the audience going to love whatever it is that we do? So we'll do. So this shirt, and I didn't wear this on purpose, I did a lot of work with the women's shelter. And Fears Not Love is now what they call themselves. So they work in domestic violence. And obviously, it's a huge deal. Any of us living in Calgary, especially in the Southwest, recently, we know domestic violence is a horrible and terrible situation, and it's not going away. So what does that look like? So they came to Rob and I and said, we want to help tell our story, but it's a hard story to tell because it's full of anger and it's full of people getting mad and saying bad jerk. And why doesn't she just leave or whatever, all of these things that happen. And that's a really tricky world to say, let's find a way to communicate hope, communicate a way forward, communicate all of these things that are hard to do is what we said, let's try to figure that.
So how are you doing that with Fear Is Not Love?
Well, part of it, so we help them. They have a big fundraiser every year called Turning Points. At this fundraiser, you're trying to raise money for a women's shelter. And the challenge with that is the bad guy is really bad. So if I'm doing a fundraiser for poverty, we can all say poverty is a terrible thing and we need to help people who are poor. And it's clear this is what you need to do. Or if you're talking about cancer, you can say cancer is a terrible thing and that's the bad is cancer, fuck cancer, whatever we say about cancer, and then we do what we can. But in a night like this, if you're talking about a perpetrator that everybody says is a monster. So how do you do that? How do you say this is going to be a night out, everyone's going to dress up and we're going to raise money, we're going to have a great time, and it's about a monster? So changing that story is really hard to do because people do horrific things and we have to somehow present that there's a way out for everybody. There's a way out for that. And even for the victim who often gets blamed for these things and people say, why don't you just leave? Why don't you it's hard. It's very complicated. It's not a simple thing. So to be able to just tell human stories of saying, but we got to find a way through is hard.
Yeah, and understanding that because it's like a deer in the headlights for women, and it can be men as well. Because when you're looking at this with obviously with violence in there, a lot of women and men, they just don't want to leave, and they're deer in the headlights, and they know it's okay, it's me, and it's not.
No.
So it's making sure that person understands there is a support out there that is willing to help you one way or another. And it's been interesting to watch that transition. Well, fear is not love, and where they were before to where they are, and to change that narrative.
So hard.
Yeah, and it's a very, very interesting.
And you think about somebody who's stuck in a situation like that, quite often it's a financial challenge. If they leave, to where, to what? They say they're going to go live on the street. Like, what are they going to do? Also, it's their kid's father in this case, or mother, or whoever. And to say, do I cut them off from that? It's not as simple as, well, we're just going to pack our bags, go to the shelter, spend a couple of weeks there and move on with our life. It's super hard and complicated and takes a lot of community support to happen.
Yeah, and we have a lot of agencies that need to actually combine together to work together to make sure that everybody's saying the same thing, saying the same narrative back and forth. So it's very interesting. That's
hard to do. Yeah,
very hard.
Yeah.
So Brother Productions.
Yes.
Has it been very lucrative and fun right now with all the podcasts coming out? Because you must be going into different directions.
We both sort of, yeah. When COVID hit, as you can guess, if I make my living in front of audiences of big crowds, I don't know if you caught this, but during COVID, there weren't a lot of crowds. So my income went down to zero in a hurry. And then we got into, so I built a studio in my basement, kind of like this. And I said, all right, I can host shows from here. I can host fundraisers from here. So I did. So for a year, and by the end of it, I could do a show that was higher definition, better audio than breakfast television ever was, because the gear is, like you say, it's so much cheaper and more available now. So we definitely had to do a huge shift there where it was like, okay, we got to do stuff that's online. But then we're like, how does online work? Because if everyone's on laptops and they're all doing shitty podcasts, then it's just a noisy, crowded, not very interesting space. So how are we interesting? How does that work? So yeah, there's been a lot of adjusting to say what actually works, what sort of communication works, what sort of video stories are ones people are actually willing to pay for. Because TikTok has shown a lot of people that you can do great content for free. So then what? How are you going to charge people for that? So that's the dance.
Interesting. So Dave, is there anything in the future that's what's happening with yourself coming up in the next, say, 30, 60, 90 days?
Well, what I'm super excited about from an entrepreneur standpoint was learning. I host a lot of events and people sometimes bring in a keynote speaker. So what I started doing a couple of years ago is I'd take notes and I'd say, hey, if you want to, took some notes on your talk, and I just give them to them for free, or not for free, just because it was interesting, but I was free. But then I realized people are like, this is really helpful. And no one's ever talked to me about how to do an intro or how to build the middle of how do I keep people engaged? How do I say things they want to hear? How do I finish? How do I walk on? And I realized that's something I love doing. So this next 60 days is me finding and talking to people who are coming to me from Los Angeles and from New York to say, help me make my keynote better. And they're already out there talking, they're already doing talks, but they want to be standing ovation talks. And I've been doing that with them.
So would you ever say, like a young entrepreneur that wants to come on and be on the stage to do a talk, a signature talk or a TED talk, would they come through you to be able to put that together?
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. I do. Again, it's new. So I'm new doing it, but for sure, that is the world that I love doing.
Because I'm really recognizing right now a lot of companies out there, a lot of entrepreneurs are looking at personal branding. So they look at personal branding themselves and saying, okay, what does personal branding mean? Okay, well, we have our businesses, what we're doing, and then say, okay, how do we take it? How do we level up? Mm-hmm. Okay, what do we need to be the expert in? Mm-hmm. What is that signature talk going to be? And how do we get that aha moment back? We're great at running a business. Okay. Mm-hmm. We've got this business. And I use this as an experience. I'm doing this to learn it, to be great at it. Mm-hmm. It's practice. Mm-hmm. But when you have somebody like yourself and say, wait a second, there's the aha moment, to be able to create that signature talk, people with branding that want to brand, this is ideal situations for that.
Well, and right? It's actually not that hard to buy good mics, to get good lights, to get this gear, to get stuff. But how do you actually make something that people want to listen to is a whole different game. And this can be very distracting because you think, well, I just need a better microphone. Well, if I only got, as soon as I get a new laptop, then we're going to, and it's like, well, no, it's what is your story? What is that? How are you going to be great at that?
Yeah. And you were mentioned earlier, we were talking about basically passion, and you're going to be passionate about what you're doing. And I listen to that because it's like getting married, right? Everybody's always passionate when they get married. It's the honeymoon's great, but you fall out of passion.
Yeah.
So then the determination has to follow suit no matter what. Follow the process. Keep the process going because you have to continue with consistency. Consistency seems to be the key. And over all the years we change, we multiply. This becomes the essence of who we are is basically consistency. And I know doing this podcast and going out there to do this, I don't know what I don't know. But listening to somebody that knows what they know, what do we not know?
Yeah.
So this is really interesting to see that growth potential on personal branding. And what does that mean to you?
Hey, take a minute and smash that subscribe button. And let's get back to the episode.
What does personal branding mean to me?
Yeah.
So I was listening to an interview with Brian Grazer, who was movie producer, incredibly successful. And he says, when I meet people, I'm like, tell me something that I can't Google. And to me, that's if entrepreneurs say, I have a talk, I want to give a talk, and it's going to be about follow your dreams and don't give up, and failure is the great teacher. Well, I could Google that and get all of that in about 2 seconds. So that's not interesting. It's true. It's not interesting. What is it about you that's unique? And everyone is. What about your lived experience gives you an insight that other people don't have? And how do you get into that is the key. If everything you say I could have Googled, then I'm like, well, great. Join the masses.
So would you drill down? So when you're meeting with somebody, you're going to do a talk or the write-up, would you drill into that?
Yeah.
What is your gift and ability?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's difficult because everyone says, well, you just failure is the great teacher. I'm like, super. Tell me what that means. And then you got to keep going to figure what does that actually mean? Because everybody says that. So what is it that you have lived? What is it that you have learned that makes you special, unique, interesting? Because everyone has a take, but until you get to that, everyone's just sort of blah-blahing, because myself included.
And it becomes interesting because when you start going down that, getting your signature talk, getting that becomes, it goes to the next level, book writing.
Yeah.
And then it becomes from the book writing, the magazine, what aspect are you selling to becomes now, what are we selling?
Yeah.
Are you selling yourself, the book, the brand, and what does that look like? So it's very interesting approach to it as seeing where the market is today and how people are buying products today too.
Even I used to get people on the show bringing books and they say it's self-published. And I would, in the back of my head, I'd say, therefore it's shit. And the reason is not that what they had to say, but it would just be way too long, way too many words, and nothing particularly interesting. And the barrier to getting a publisher used to be, they would say, well, it's not good yet, go away. But now anyone can publish. So it's you can publish something that's absolutely uninteresting, and it can be, you can feel great, but is it the thing that actually anyone's going to want to read is the real question.
So when you're dealing with the stuff with your customers and clients and doing this, how has AI been involved in this?
AI it's been really fun to spin out ideas, but when you're drilling into someone's story, it's their story. And AI at this point, maybe someday it will be, but AI is not like, it's a piece of it, but it's not a very big piece yet.
Yeah, and I'm using it more like ChatGPT, and then all of a sudden you're going in there to say, okay, here, write on this part. Interesting.
I've never found a ChatGPT speech that was better than somebody writing their own. It can help them start, give them an outline, or whatever, but it's still got to come from somebody.
So someone that's doing a signature talk, or a speech, say let's say 3 of them. How long? What kind of process would that be? A week, 2 weeks, a month, a year?
It depends so much on them. Like, is this something they've thought about forever? Is this something they've got pages that they've written over years? Or is it something that they woke up that day and said, oh, I'd like to do a signature talk? So that's a big piece of it. The people I tend to work with are already out there doing talks. They just want to get better. They want to be the one that instead of having everyone applaud, they want everyone to stand up. So that's kind of the field. If someone's like, I don't know, maybe I want to talk, well, that's a lifetime to get there. So they could be months.
Oh, so you basically so somebody who's just starting out, you would say, well, you've got a long ways to go before we get you to a signature talk.
Or you need to just really be willing to work it. Like if they're saying, I don't know, what should I talk about? Well, then you need to go away and go sit in the mountains and stare at your belly button and figure out what that is. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
You know what, Dave? Thank you very much for coming on Shed Talk. Wow. That was outstanding.
I hope it's interesting. I have no idea, but if it works for you, I'm glad.
Thank you very much. Kevin. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Now you know. Shed Talk.